We are officially in the months that end in Burr, and that means, especially if you live in the Midwest, that it is prime sit in the basement and work on Dungeons and Dragons or play Dungeons and Dragons time. And we're glad you found us here on Fireball the Gazebo. Vince, how you doing?
I was just thinking through that intro, and I'm like, does nothing else? Is that what's going on here? Is that true? But anyways, yeah, it's freaking cold out, man. That is absolutely true. The Midwest, famously the home of role playing, because for some significant portion of the year, depending on exactly where you are, it really sucks to go outside. And so, yes, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about spending an egregious amount of time inside playing an RPG in a marathon format. So there you go.
Quite literally all the time.
All the time.
All of the time that you have, it's only D&D. And if you have to lock the door from the outside so no one can leave, that is that's okay. We'll allow that. But yeah, we're going to talk about marathon games because they are their own beast. And Vince is an expert in this, having run them, played them for years now. And so I want to learn a little bit more about them. I understand and I am drawn to the really big potential that they can bring. So I have some questions for you, and to have you break it down for everyone to see if this is something that really is useful, because I think it is for a lot of people that can't necessarily commit to playing every single Friday from now until we die, right? This is a different approach. But before we get into that, Vince, let's talk a little bit story time. You got any story time?
I do have some story time. I've got two different stories I'm going to share today. One is a little more generic, and one is specific to a previous episode we had about ruttigers.
Ooh.
So I'll share a story from my ongoing weekly game first, because we still played our weekly game around the marathon, which is real funny.
What the okay.
But at any rate, in the marathon or in my weekly game, there's a situation. This is second edition D&D, but it really wouldn't matter, because this is true for like basically any game system I've ever played, ever. Okay, they're going through this dungeon, and it's like this big lizard temple. It's a source of all this corruption. There's a disease spreading across the land. Stuff
as
classic,
you do.
Classic D&D stuff.
Yep,
a bunch of Yuan-Ti, fun things, traps, stuff. Ancient lizard temple.
You're right.
Anyways, they go into this temple, and in one of the rooms, there's a bunch of Yuan-Ti that emerge from suspended animation in these crypts. They're like the guardians of this place.
Yep.
And there's a big one. There's like a real big one, right? There's like 8. So the way the room is set up, there's a big rectangle. PCs come in the left side. The Yuan-Ti all wake up. So PCs are at this end. There are 8 normal Yuan-Ti, and every one of these guys have proved to be a bit of a challenge. We had a very funny standoff at the entrance to the place, where the Yuan-Ti were on the other side of a physical trap that you had to defeat and to get at the magical trap. And they were on the other side with just some bows, right? And everybody was just like, this was confounding people. And they were like, okay, well, we run away and hide on the other side of the entrance. And I was like, okay. They're like, what happens? I said, nothing. They're not coming out.
No more arrows have been shot this day.
Yeah, they're gonna chill and wait. Yeah. Like, you can do something, but otherwise we're out of initiative. You tell me what you're doing, because they're just gonna chill there. They're good. They have like a bunch of cover. They're in total darkness. They can see you just fine, and they're on the other side of a very powerful magical trap.
Right.
They're feeling happy about their life, right? Like, what are they gonna do? Walk out and get you? No, you came into their home. They're good. You leave, they're done.
They probably go inside and like tell the other people too, like, hey, there's some guys out here. They ran away though, but they're probably still out there.
Sure. So at any rate, that aside of that like funniness, it was funny to watch the PCs like try to dip their head in and be safe. Like the one wizard's like, well, I'll jump around and cast fireball and then I'll jump back. I was like, okay, well then you're going to get shot. And he's like, but how? Why? And I was like, if you poke your head out and can see them, they can see you. End of discussion. This is what's happening. I was like, there's no magical, I get to shoot at them, but they don't get to shoot at me thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like if you want to come up with a better plan, fine. But otherwise it's shooting time. So at any rate, then there's the big guy. So you got the 8 Yuan-Ti, and then you got a big guy in the back of the room.
And he was just physically larger. He had nothing else that was...
physically larger. He had a big weapon. The other ones all had claws. He had a cool big falchion.
Okay.
Other than that, he was just a big dude.
Right.
I want to talk about the urge to fight the big guy.
Yeah.
Okay. People nobody wants to just like handle the business. Everybody wants to fight the big guy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the first thing that happens is the Kensai, who is super fast because he's playing a Kensai, which is like this broken, ridiculous class out of the first edition Oriental Adventures, right? And his weapon speed is like negative a million, and all
Ways
of this
first.
because, of course, he's using a katana, and of course, katanas are just so much faster than any other
That's not
slow,
how.
poor Western sword.
That's not how swords work. But yeah, I get it.
Now, there's a lot of weebs writing that book back in the 80s, homie. Anyways, he goes first and he runs in and he attacks the dude. He does a bunch of damage to him. Things do not have a lot of hit points in second edition. If you can hit hard as he can, you kill things. Okay. And so he does a crap ton of damage to this guy, but he doesn't kill him.
To big guy.
And
He
then
went
it's
right
the
to big
monster's
guy.
turn. Okay.
No.
Like maybe one other PC went and then it was the monster's turn. And I'm like, all right, well, you're alone in the back of the room. A bunch of them are just going to collapse on you and fight you because you've presented yourself like they can't see who else is out there in the hallway. All these people hide back, right?
Yeah.
And this fight just turns into madness. Okay.
No.
Because 2 of them block the doorway so no one else can get in. 4 of them go attack him along with the big guy. At the end of the turn, he's at like 8.
I'm surprised he's still standing. That's
his AC is bonkers. His AC is like -6 or something ridiculous. Okay, so like, he's very hard to hit.
You got Goku here and with the rest of the
Sure. But it's fine. I mean, they still did a ton of damage to him and poisoned him and a bunch of other stuff. He got lucky that he made his saves because, oh no, wait, I'm sorry. He didn't. He failed one of his saves. He was at 8 and paralyzed.
Oh,
to be clear. So he's dead.
Yeah.
Next time they activate. Okay, like he is just dead. They just execute him. Paralysis is real bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's 2 of them like fighting the other PC that jumped in the room, but just slightly.
Uh-huh.
And is like hiding up on a wall. And then madness starts like, because they can all do like giant fear beams and stuff. So they just like, things start going crazy real fast. He gets his paralysis removed. He tries to kill a guy and he's going to run, but then he realizes he'd take a bunch of attacks of opportunity. That did exist in second edition still. So he has to just like risk it for the biscuit. They all miss. Everybody gets hit by fear beams. Half the party runs away. The rogue who is hiding out in another room sees a bunch of people running away, runs with them because she thinks we're all running.
You're right.
2 of the bad guys also got caught in it and failed, and they're all running now too. So like half the party
Different
and
directions.
bad guys are just running out the front of the temple. It was a great scene. It was a very fun fight. But I just love every fight. If I put like a boss, even a mini boss in, there's just a set of players. And it's always the player. It's not the character. It's the player.
Oh, yeah.
That will just beeline for that thing. They must be the person that fights the special thing, right?
Yeah. I am the true hero. I'm the one that will stave back the darkness. You all just take care of the rats at our feet. Like, you can't. It must be like some kind of internal primordial draw that you can't even control. That hits not all of us. Most people are just. I don't see most. It's at least a coin flip's chance where you're just like, whoever you have that played that rogue, she would never do that. She'd be like,
never.
no matter what character, like her brain is evolved enough to know that's not the smart move. But you just can't. You can't stop the dumb monkey brain sometimes, and that dumb monkey brain gets you. And the thing is
and like, I want to make a distinction here between the character and the player, right? Because I'm saying there are players who do this all the time. If you're playing like a character, like some kind of like great heroic or paladin fighter who's like always challenging out the biggest bad guy because like your character, you're trying to become like the greatest swordsman in the world or something, and so you want to always fight the biggest singular thing to test your mettle. Fine, that's your character. I would understand. I'm not slamming that person, right? I'm saying there's a player archetype, and I've noticed this across players because it does not matter what they're playing. They're going after him. If they're playing a wizard, their best spell goes at him. If they're playing a rogue, they will run over there and try to backstab him, or just irrelevant who they are, right?
And the wizard, the good way to check this, if your wizard is one of these players, is they will put themselves in a stupid spot to then cast the spell, that if it doesn't work exactly optimally, they just turn around and within one move's distance, kill you. Like,
yeah, right.
You weren't even strategic about it, man. Like, I get it. I get you want to get them all in the fireball blast. I empathize with that. However, yeah. Like sometimes like there's good story tropes and there's good ways to build off of like the dynamics of a group that has the big hulking Goliath barbarian guy or girl, like in what's that dumb Critical Role show?
Vox Machina.
Vox Machina.
It's
Yeah,
not dumb. It's a great show.
There's that dumb Goliath guy. That's the character. He's like,
yes,
I always go in. I'll go to smash.
Yeah, he goes after the big guy because he's playing the classic.
He goes after the big guy. Yeah. And then what happens is it inevitably isn't the smart strategic move. And the rest of the group have to like improvise, or now you're in a more interesting situation. And now the dynamics have changed and they're as much trying to get out of the new predicament that they're in, which makes drama and makes fun. However, if that's the same line that is hit every time, and it, especially when it doesn't line up with the character, so you're like, the group doesn't like kind of clock that and like tie it to how a character is going to act, it can just be like, oh man, you're killing me with this every time. You're killing me with this.
No, I when they met the actual big bad, this came the same character by the by, was like beeline right for him again. Okay, like it's just multiple times the same dungeon.
Can't help himself.
And this time, but it was funny because this one had a bunch of traps, like pre-designated defenses set up around her. She's a big, powerful caster to protect herself, and he just ran right in there and hit every single one of them on the way in. Just sideshow Bob with the rakes, just whap, 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 all the way down.
Good news, guys. So like, the traps are cleared.
And so, part of it is like, I think it's fun to like, I could talk to the player and I could say like, hey, why are you doing this? Can we have a talk? Because you do this all the time, right? Yeah. But I don't care. Like, if that's what makes them happy, if that's where they draw some of their utility from, they want to feel like they're fighting the big bad person and then be the big bad or be the big hero. Cool. Like, that just gives me more tools to work with as a GM. So like my actual lesson here is just like, know your players, and you can then use that to tell more story. Right? Like you can put traps and just put a pit trap like right in front of the big bad guy. So that person runs in there just like zoop right in the hole. If like, don't do that every time. That gets stupid. Right?
Yeah. They just go down the twirly slide. Meow.
Right. Wrong lever. Like, but you can like, you can do stuff that makes it more interactive or creates more interesting situations out of that is my point. Right?
One of the things I've found with this, because this exact trope has been with me for as long as I played D&D, I imagine maybe most of us, that this happens all the time. It allowed me to learn very early on in my DMing career that if such a thing is regularly just straight up successful or the optimal strategy, you're designing boring boss fights. You're designing boring big guy fights. If that's the way to solve the equation, it's a pretty simple arithmetic equation then. Like having more things, describing more things, making it feel like it's a much more complex battle arena, then suddenly you get them thinking, and they can utilize things like his super fast speed and that kind of things in other interesting ways. Outside
have more going on is also is another option. The problem is if you have a bunch of stuff going on and the players just don't care anyways because that's still what they want to do, right? And then they run headlong into it and then they don't have a good time. So again, it's about finding that right mix where you like give them opportunities, but also sometimes give them some raps on the knuckles for their choices.
Right. That is a really good point to bring up. This is not about punishing or scolding. It's not about like you did it wrong. Your decision of in a game where you have infinite decisions, the one you picked with no other data points was the wrong one. When you have no reason to believe one decision was better or worse than another, don't do that. Just try to stay ahead of it. Also, like if someone's doing that, the thing that I like to keep an eye on is what's the attitude in the room from the other players? Because I've found oftentimes the rest of the group is much more pissed off when that keeps happening than I as the DM. and what I try to encourage when that happens is like, all right, maybe your characters, next time you do your long rest and you're sitting down, you're making camp or something, would your characters approach them, and how would they do so? And like, what kind of conversations would they have? Because they're obviously doing it as a player, but if you can try to plant it on in the character, then you're going to have a much easier time of kind of
Agreed.
like helping them see it. My dog is snoring so loudly.
I
Can you
can't
hear?
hear it, so I don't think our listeners can hear it either. But that's fine.
I can't. His noise in my ear is as loud as you're talking.
All right. So that's my first story. My second story, because I got two this week, is we did do our marathon game. We're going to talk a bunch about marathons, how to structure them, how to do them, how to play them, what they are, why they're good, all that. Stay tuned. But we ran Ruttigers. So we did a little 3.5 day Ruttigers thing.
This is so
and it
this
was
is
fun.
so exciting. This is so exciting to me. And
Yeah,
I think this
it was
is
really
smart
fun
for us to break this up, because we're going to talk about marathon tabletop RPGs as a whole, not kind of D&D specific or whatever. You can apply this no matter what game you play. But I didn't want to avoid talking about Ruttigers, seeing as you got to get your feet wet and do it. And I actually built up a one-shot Ruttigers session for my group that I'm hoping to run soon. We didn't get to run it this last weekend, but I want to hear what was your impression? What things stood out to you? What do the players think? What was the good? What were the things that need to be tweaked more? What, give it to me.
Yeah, I'm ready. So it was very fun. I'll say that. Let me just say that to start. Everybody had a great time. So that, I think, is the mark right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The most funny question was, what is widow's salt? On the equipment list, there is a thing called widow's salt, and we Googled it and there was no responses. And so one of my players actually added Richard on Twitter to be like, what is this? And my guess was like, I bet it's some kind of ritual thing like you use to make like a circle to like bind something. And yeah, it turns out that's basically what it is. But anyways, so that was very funny.
Not knowing is somehow better in my head than knowing.
Absolutely. It was so much funnier. I prepared this nice game. I started with because there's a playtest adventure. Okay. Where you're like fighting this sort of like Jack the Pumpkin King guy. And so then I made a little campaign based off of that that took through the world. Okay. And so we went levels 1 through 8 in the weekend. Okay. So we got a good run in. I mean, it's only like the system itself, is as it exists in the playtest form, is meant to go 1 through 10. I wanted to get to 10, but it just didn't, like, that just wasn't the right break story-wise. So we went 1 through 8, which I still felt gave us a perfectly good, kind of breakdown. The big hits were the initiative system. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So the initiative system for Ruttigers, for those who didn't watch the interview or don't remember, is everybody makes either a dexterity or wisdom saving throw. It's their choice. And if you succeed, i.e. get a 15 or higher.
Yeah, DC 15. Okay.
Yep. Then you go before the bad guys. If you fail, you go after the bad guys. That's it. So as the DM, you don't have to roll. You just go in the middle every time. And so we took to calling it I was like, who's pre-gaming? And then the people would go. I was like, okay, my turn. And then I'd be like, all right, who's in the after party? Right. And that's just how we would break it out. One of the mechanical it was very fun. It was easy. It was clean. People could do like, oh, wait, I need to do this before you do this. I'll buff you. You go do this. That all worked exactly as intended. Okay.
Right.
Perfect.
Because, yeah, it's key to note here, if there's multiple people that go before the monsters, you get to pick the order that you go in. And so, and you also, why I think, at least in theory, I think it sounds so interesting, is because all the monsters go together in the middle, and that can be very swingy. And so you're saying a group of us before, then them, then a group of us after. You have these natural, like, dramatic swings that would happen in combat. And I think that's setting it up for something really, really cool. So it worked that way. Cool.
Worked that way. It was fine. And by the way, I think one of the people's fears about this might be, well, if there's no defined order, do people just get like caught in the paradox of choice and like conversations about who's going to go? I did not find that. I mean, maybe some groups would. I can't speak to everybody, but I can say for our group, people were ready to act. Like, I'm going to attack. Okay, I'll buff you. Like, the conversations took 10 seconds and then people were off to the races. Okay. So that worked very well. Mechanically, there's a bit of a challenge. Saves add your level.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. So there are some things in the game that
proficiency kind of in their own way.
Sure. Yeah, sort of. But the save is static. It's 15. Lots of saves in the game are static at 15. And so, like, the interesting challenge that evolves is that at low that, and so there are some things in the game that add your level to the calculation and some things that don't. Okay.
Okay.
Keeping them separate wasn't hard because the character sheet has all that great reminder stuff on it.
Yep.
So like people were really easily able to be like, okay, cool, and just reference and roll. Like that was no problem. There wasn't like confusion or anything, which is good. That speaks to the cleanliness of the design, right? The challenge was by the time we got to like level 6, 7, 8, if you have a good primary stat, like if you have like an 18 in your primary stat that you're checking on or something, or even higher, right?
Just
Because I did give
auto
out a couple
succeed.
of magic items over the course of the game that
Yeah.
enhanced stats, classic traditional D&D stuff like +2 to a stat, not a ton, but a few. So like if you had that kind of a thing, you just auto nailed those checks more or less. Like by the time we were done, like when we were like level 8, I was rolling at the end. Okay. Like the vast majority of the party, if they weren't rolling with Bane or didn't have some levels of fatigue, just went before the monsters. Right.
Well, because initiative also rolls off of that
That
system.
save. Right. So like consider you're trying to get a 15 and like if you're level 7 and you've got an 18 stat, that's plus 11 to the roll. So on a 4 up, you succeed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which has a snowballing effect of the entire combat if regularly most of the group is going before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that too. I saw that there, and I saw some other area that dealt with, I think it was also with saves, because technically the initiative roll is a saving throw roll, kind of how they keep everything in nice little packages and condensed and easy to follow. But there was other universal DCs on other things too that it seemed to me as well that would break. But because the system is meant to be streamlined yet really deep, I'm curious how they're going to approach that to make that scale realistically without just getting into the inevitable proficiency numbers bloat game that
I don't
plagues
know. It'll be
all.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like on the flip side, to go back to something that worked really well, we talked about there's like combat maneuvers, right? So you can just do a
Mm-hmm.
combat maneuver as your move action. Like if you don't have to move, you can do a combat maneuver where you make a skill check basically against DC 15. Okay. Like a stat
Yeah.
check effectively. And if you succeed, you get a D6 that you can float for the round. Okay. People loved that. Everybody loved that. Casters were doing these things. Everybody was doing combat maneuvers. It was constant. Okay. People were teaming up, doing them together, like doing a combat maneuver to give, because you can give it to another person that you're in melee with, right? So they were giving like somebody else a bonus. There was like the witch and the people who could summon pets would have their pets do combat maneuvers and then help them, right? Which I was like totally fine with. That was
I
pretty
just
cool. That was like
I just
neat.
picture like this every time the fight starts to happen, you look like a weird ramshackle acrobats group that's just doing cartwheels around the place and just doing
Sure.
silly rolls. Like, we got it, guys. We got it.
Yeah. But they were very popular. Like people remembered them, used them. They were valuable. It was great. It was very good. So
Okay.
like that was an extremely good system. Notably, that does not add your level.
Okay.
So like that check
smart.
just remained pretty much statically the same difficulty throughout the game. It was always, you never for sure got your maneuver, right? And so it was pretty good.
Maybe that's the answer to the initiative system then. Maybe
Probably.
it doesn't
I
add
think
your
it's to
level.
remove level from it in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can show over time how you are getting better with it by investing in the stat associated with it, or getting a magical
the stat,
item,
or you get items, traditional like rings of protection and stuff like that would buff your
or
saves,
even
like,
initiative rings that give +2 to initiative roll. Like, okay, all right, we fixed it. All right, we'll let him know. How did
I have a bunch of notes. Like that worked really well. The spell casting was interesting. Cantrips are really, really, really powerful. Really powerful.
Because if you're not moving, to the rules on that, if you all can't remember,
you can fire two off around. Yeah, they don't tend to do damage, but they tend to do very important things.
Yeah, so if you, instead of using, you only get a move action and a regular like attack action. So you only can do 2 things in a round, but you can sub out your move for a number of really interesting things, like those maneuvers, like casting a cantrip. So you can cast a level 1 spell with your regular attack action and then cast a cantrip with your move action, but then you're stationary. You didn't get to move that round. So I like the variability without really too much abuse of optimizing your actions. But yeah, okay. So that was powerful for a spellcaster. Okay.
They were, and this is another place where there's a bit of like they were great. People loved the cantrips, loved the different spells. The witch was exceptional. Witch might be a bit too good. By the end of the game, 5 of the 7 players at the table were witches because the class system is such that you can just take whatever class you want every level.
Yeah, that
And
is
witch
really
runs
cool.
off of con, which is everybody's secondary stat, basically.
Right. So why not con?
Everybody dips some into witch. Like, yeah, sure, I want to become incorporeal and teleport and stuff like that as my, cantrip action. Like, why not?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that seems good.
Which might be a bit too good. People are all summoning demons. There's a bunch of demons hanging out in the party by the time we were done. It's fine. I don't care. Like, it was all good.
Man, you just name the party Heavier Than Ducks. That's the name of our party.
Yes.
They all weigh more than a duck at this point, so they're all witches.
A lot of witches. The spellcasting was also interesting because at low level, it's very hard to cast spells. Because yet again, it's like a d20 plus your stat plus your level. But you're effectively going against DC 12 to actually cast the spell. If you get it 1 through 11, you fail and you lose access to the spell for the day. Okay.
Yeah, they have that in what's the other game I played? Darkest Dungeon. I don't remember what it's called.
Shadowdark or whatever.
Shadowdark. So close. And I really like that's a very like dramatic mechanic, right? Anytime you roll a dice on a spell, the thought is like, oh no. And you're knee deep in a dungeon, like it adds a level of fun drama to it. So I don't dislike that in, as a whole.
There's some double-edged sword to it for sure. Like for some people, it was just you roll a 1 on your first spell cast a day, it fails, that's it. And it's like, well, you never got to cast that cantrip that day. That's just off now. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in Shadowdark, they have a really fun thing where it's like if you had so many levels in a spellcaster, you get like 1 free spell check reroll per day or something.
Sure,
like basically
to guard against that.
Yeah, if you're investing your character into being a better spellcaster and you have more levels of wizard or witch or whatever, then you could unlock that thing, and that helps you be a little bit more consistent for that first oh shit moment of the day. You kind of get to nullify. So that might be an easy add kind of thing.
Yeah. The rank system for the spells was really good. That was solid design. Like it just, the better your casting roll, the better the ranks. I played with bad guys who are also spellcasters. The creature building thing is really easy and simple to use. Like it's so easy. It was great. Like as a GM, I never felt bad. I was always able to very quickly. I was very quickly able to generate monsters. Even if something came up unexpected, I could generate something really fast. So that was a definite win. No problems there at all. One of the interesting things though about the monsters is they have very low to hit bonuses, but as they scale up, have very high damage. Okay. And people do not have a lot of hit points. This is like 2nd edition style hit points. You just don't
Did you have them roll for hit points every time they level?
Of course. Yeah, there's no default.
No.
There's no like you just get 5. No, you roll the dice. That's what the game says. We played what the game says in the packet.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And so like at every level, including first, by the by.
Oh boy.
So, the thing is like you get a relatively decently high hit dice monster. Okay. That monster's got like +2 to hit or 3 to hit or something like that. The PC's ACs are very easily all like 18 to 20 without working too hard. Okay.
A lot of whiffing going on.
Yes. So like the monsters will miss a lot, but then suddenly they'll connect and just flatline somebody because they hit for like 2d12 or 3d10 or something like that at that same level, right? So they just like crush, especially if the monsters do a break 20 or like that. Which, by the way, the critical hit system was an absolute win. People loved it. The like break 20 system to add damage, where like if your total goes over 20, then you get that delta as damage. People loved that. That was absolutely great design, super elegant, perfect. Like no notes on that. Break 20 was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it reads so beautifully that I'm so excited. Like it's the kind of thing I almost like I want to straight up just replace criticals in other editions in other games with that because it transports so well. But when the it works better with a game where numbers are more compact and more controlled though. But Yes. Okay, that's great to hear too. Did people seem to be excited about every time they leveled, like thinking about how their character
But
is
yeah, tons
playing
of
and
discussion around
changing?
what class you're taking. Yeah, nobody. I don't think we had anybody who truly was single classed all the way up. Maybe do we have one person? Maybe we had one. I think it was one person who either did stay single or only dipped once. But everybody else was all over the shop. Yeah.
Yeah. Did that make the characters feel like they had a true interesting identity, or did it make them feel like they were all weird pots of soup and they were just
Yeah, the soup concern. No, it wasn't present. Everybody, because again, your client, your character has so much else defining you.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Beyond just like what class you have. So no, I mean they all had very strong personalities. The way that they mixed the classes was very relevant as to how they played, right? So
Mm,
like the Reaver witch, like the melee fighter witch, played a lot different and fought a lot different, acted a lot different than like the Deadeye Ranger witch,
hmm.
right? Everybody fart witch, as I said. But you know, like we did have one person who just went mage all the way up. That was the single class. Now that I'm thinking about it, yes. Which that class needs some help. Side note, mage needs some help. It's too weak by
Oh,
far compared
okay.
to the other caster classes.
Well,
The people liked the spells. People liked that. I'm trying to think of what else people really responded positively to. Uh, yeah, I mean, like on the whole, resolving everything was very simple. Like educating anything was easy. The skill checks are like super easy to resolve. I always felt like I knew the right information to give out to people based on the check they got. And there was always something to learn, like 5, 10, 15, 20 is basically all you ever need. And it was great. I always felt like there was the appropriate rewards to give out. It was very simple to educate. Like if there was something unusual that was happening, I knew exactly like the mechanics made it very quick and fast to be like, okay, make this check, you're good to go. It's fine.
awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, that's exciting. That's good feedback. It felt like, you were able to focus more on the story and the direction and the interesting things that were happening and less being tied down to the mechanics to crawl your way through this marathon
They
session.
very quickly fell to the background and got easy as heck. Like the players got into it by the end of the first night and were basically just like running. That to me is the sign of a pretty successful thing. Like we noticed some mechanical oddities here or there. There's of course feedback, but that's what you expect with a playtest. I wasn't expecting perfection. Everybody
Right.
had a good time. There was a lot of really strong elements in there, and I think there's some things you could just go back and polish up some more.
Yeah. Yeah, that is I think a really good position to be in for playtest packet 1. Like this is the very
Right.
first one, and I know he was saying that they're close to bringing out 2. So you'll have more great feedback to share with them on that, as long as the expansion of all more spells and more of the tools and toys and stuff that he talked about as well. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to our full episode on Ruttigers and hear from the creator of the game about the breakdown of this game, because we're pretty pumped for it. I'm excited to run it too, and maybe take a little bit of your feedback and tweaking a few things for my own group. I think even just that initiative system tweak of not adding level might be an easy, quick fix for the short time. All right. Do we have any news? Anything in the tabletop RPG space that we need to talk about, Vince?
I got a little bit of news. We went along with the Ruttiger story, but I'll keep this part brief. But I thought it was worth it to tell people. By the way, my final recommendation would be definitely go grab the playtest where if you can, hit them up on Twitter
That's
and give
free.
it a try. You'll have fun. Yes, exactly. All right. So, little bit of news. Here we go, coming in across the transom. What do we got here? We got first off, so Starfinder is putting out a new book. This is obviously the sci-fi Pathfinder, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Galactic Ancestries, 21 new weird alien races coming in April 2026. Now, the reason I included this little bit of news is because, of course, we have ever since our episode on weird races and my point that why is it fantasy has to be locked to some like only elves and dwarves and halflings are allowed. Even gnomes are stupid. You're stupid if you like gnomes. Anything else is dumb. Fantasy is only this stuff, right? And yet sci-fi can just be like, whatever, man, here's 100 new weirdos. This guy's a floating pile of ooze in a bubble, and he has mechanical robot arms. He comes from the bubble, the bubble ooze people. And it's like, yeah, great. All right, I want to play bubble ooze guy. Right. And this is just exactly that. It's just like a ton of weirdos just rolling in from anywhere in the corners of the galaxy, and it's okay. And I was like, you know what? Good for you, Starfinder. I love it. Get weird with it. If it's at least if I could at least have weirdness in sci-fi, then I say lean all the way in. So I was pretty excited about this.
All right. Yeah. If you're going to do it, you might as well go whole hog. It's like if I ever, I don't know how often I want to play a space turnip, but if ever I wanted to play a talking sedentary space turnip, because I got to live in my own space turnip chair. I can't actually walk, but I am a good, strong being with my turnip brain. I can now do that. So I'm so
absolutely
happy.
Play your psychic space turnip. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love weird aliens. So anyways, I was very excited to see this. So yeah, April 2026. Okay. Next little bit of news. Forge of the Artificer is coming out this month. It's on D&D Beyond right now, but the physical book comes out on like the 11th, I think, if you didn't pre-order it off of the D&D Beyond package, whatever. This is the Eberron expansion book. Have you ever played in Eberron? This is obviously a D&D setting.
Yeah, not
Eberron?
a lot, but I have. Yep.
Okay.
4th edition.
One of my favorite worlds to play in. I truly do love Eberron. I love its mix of like noir and pulp adventure and sort of all of that. It's clearly meant to be set in a sort of in between two big wars time period. So like in between World War I and World War II is kind of the feeling of the thing.
Uh-huh.
And that's just a time period I particularly love. I like as a place to tell stories. At any rate, this is like an expansion book over Rising of the Last War, the first one they put out. The book's relatively cheap. It's only $30 comparatively. But I'm a little disappointed. On one hand, it's funny. Half-elves are back. Like, we got this far into the edition, and we brought half-elves back. They actually have just an official half-elf entry in there. Even though in there they're called, like, something else, and they're like, they don't like the term half-elves. And it's like, okay, you can not like the cool. That's fine.
You can not like cool. That's fine. Yeah. But they were making all their entire social commentary, which was the whole reason to take out half-elves in the first place. And now we're back in it, tracking it up. So, okay.
Right. Because it doesn't work. Because half-elves were, like, actually really important to Eberron, like, culturally. Yes. By the way, it'd be the same thing if you ever went back to Dragonlance. You're going to not have half-elves? Most famous character in the entire freaking story.
Right? Okay.
But anyways. So, that's fine. They're back, and they're perfectly fine. If you want to play a half-elf there, you've got official rules for it now. The other thing they did, and this is the interesting part to me. Do you know what dragon marks are in Eberron?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember playing with dragon marks. I love that.
Sure. So they're like a central part of the story, right? One of the things I love about Eberron is it does this thing that I very much like, that the only other world that really did this effectively beforehand was Planescape. And that is, you have a lot of competing power centers that work on different axes, okay? Where they're not necessarily aligned and they have overlapping spheres of influence. That sounds rather complicated, but let me make it simple. In Eberron, you have the great nation states, the 5 great nations, right? And those are countries. They have power centers, soldiers, kings, or whatever, lords, armies. That's their power, right? There are other nations beyond the 5, of course. There's like the, Droam and all these other things. Same deal. Then there's the guilds, right? And the guilds extend across national barriers, and they build their power based on the dragon marks, right? They have the great dragon marked houses, right? So this is like the Landsrad from Dune or whatever, right? The great houses. And they draw their power from their dragon marks, from the fact that like a bunch of people in their family, in their house, are just super cool wizards who can do neat wizard stuff. And that gives them incredible power, right?
Yes.
Incredible economic and material power. And then you have other like normal what I'd call like the oddball groups. So like dragons who wield prophecy as a weapon, and weird psionic infiltrators, and the cults, and all that other random stuff, who are sometimes villains, sometimes not. At any rate, dragon marks in the original story were locked to specific species, races. Okay. So like this mark belongs to these people. Like the halflings have the mark of healing. It's their thing. And so everybody in that house is a halfling. There might be other people who you might be from that house and not be a halfling. Like you can get brought in or adopted into the house, but you don't have the mark.
Okay. I see where this is going.
And like in 4th edition, they were just like, whatever, everybody can take whatever marks. And it's just like, it just became a stupid power gamey thing that you just took whatever for whatever.
Yes.
Right. Just another rando feat that you just took that didn't mean anything to your character.
No connection to any story or anything in the game particularly.
Yep. When we went and to 5th edition, we once again reset it back to no, they're tidally locked, right? Which is the correct choice. This is an example of giving the players what they say they want makes the game worse. Okay. Like having these things be locked to specific peoples is good design. It gives those people a place in the world, a unique angle. Right. And like, yes, if you want the mark of whatever, you have to be a half orc. Those are the people who have it. Right. And that gives them as half orcs, like it gives them a shared experience and their house a sort of unity in this way, a shared story that they all tell together.
It's creating of culture, and you're just like stripping away culture if you just say that it's
right. If you just like dilute it and say whatever, anybody can have it, right? So,
yeah.
And like the trick with it is, I'm not trying to be like some essentialist about something. That's not what my point is. There's lots of interesting ways in Ebron to gain power, right? This isn't innately more powerful than any of the other ones. It's just a cool story element of the world that it's like, oh, cool. This is one of the things that makes these elves special, right? They have this unique thing. It's a very fantasy oriented thing, right? So, anyways, I was sad to see that get changed. Anyway, I think that's a bad change. I think that's the wrong change. I think it makes I think it makes the overall story of the world weaker, right?
Yeah. Harder to follow and more diluted and unnecessarily complicated, right? You already just talked about the different power centers and how it's broken up in these different tiers in different ways and how some of them overlap amongst each other. And that's already hard to wrap your brain around as a player and to show that in your world through sessions and through NPC interactions and through storytelling of a level higher than the interpersonal connections is always something that we, really put a high value on, and is not easily done. When you make it unnecessarily diluted or confusing or they actually had the dragon mark the whole time. You're like, what?
Right.
What? Huh?
And they always had opportunities. There were like these weird aberrant dragon marks back in the original story that could just appear on anyone. So they always had the opportunity that if you wanted to play somebody unusual, you could have these little weird aberrant dragon marks, which, by the way, made you hated by the dragon marked houses because, of course, you weren't supposed to exist, right? And like again, that's fun. Now that's just nothing. That whole concept is just nothing. If anybody can just have a mark anywhere. So anyway.
Bummer.
All right. Last little bit of news. I went longer on that one, but it really gets under my craw. I'm sorry. I love Ebron a lot. Traveler is coming to 5e. I never thought I would say these words. So Traveler, have you ever played Traveler?
No. Never
It's
heard
a great
of it.
sci-fi game. Probably one of the greatest sci-fi games ever made, honestly. It's amazing.
Okay.
It's wonderful. One of the most cool, fun character generation systems ever. Currently, Mongoose Publishing has it. I don't actually know what they're on 2nd edition. I don't know what edition that actually makes since it really came out. It's a very old game. Okay. It was like one of the first sci-fi RPGs. Its character generation system, man, it's a journey. It's wild, dog. Okay, like it's like years of your life go by, not years of your real life. Like you explain and roll through years of your actual life in creating a character. Okay,
wow.
To like build experiences and stuff before you start. It's cool. Anyways, Mongoose is getting together with the world's largest RPGs, which is a company, and they're making a 5e compatible version of Traveler, which is crazy to me because Traveler is such its own unique thing. They're not canceling the normal Traveler line. Worry not. Normal Traveler will still exist. This is just an option out of this partnership. And here's the part that blew my mind, John. You ready for this? The initial release is going to be, they said, 4 to 5 books, big books, totaling more than 2,000 pages.
Man, you're going to be able to play a space turnip in that game too with that number of pages.
And I read this and I was like, I'm not interested in this at all. Okay. Because like 1, I'm not very hot on 5e right now. And 2, you're going to just water down everything that made Traveler great.
Yes.
Because it's big and crazy. It's got a really cool setting, by the way, as well. You're going to water it all down. And then I read 2,000 pages and I was like, hold on, I'm back on board. Maybe not.
All right.
Sounds like we're going to try to just shove this all in. So that's
Well,
pretty interesting. I don't know what this thing's going to cost, but I'm guessing not cheap.
no, not cheap. Not cheap, especially if they have their special launch edition versions. Woo! I mean, that's one worthy of keeping our eyes on as more information is shared and what that actually starts to flesh out a more realistic way of what that's going to look like. I mean, you could simplify things and just run it into that D20 5th edition system, but keep the uniqueness to it, the personality of the system. That might be good.
I await with interest to see what happens.
All right, Vince, let's talk about marathon games.
Yeah, boy.
Marathons. First, let's define when I say this weekend we're gonna play a marathon game, D&D or Pathfinder or I don't know, Starfinder, Galactic Empires, the Turnips Rise Again. What does that mean?
Okay, sure. Let me set the stage. I've done 3 marathon games a year at least, sometimes 4, for the past 17 years. Started doing these in like 2008. And we had done them occasionally when we were younger, when we had time, because when you're younger and you're a teenager, you can just like lose a whole weekend and that's fine. But that's when we officially began this process in any kind of regular thing. So what is this thing? This is getting together for usually a long weekend. We orient them around holidays where there is a Monday or a Friday off. Okay. So think like a 3 or 4 day weekend. And we usually start like the night before.
Okay.
Right.
So if you're taking Friday off of work, it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're actually starting Thursday night.
Correct. There you go. Like after work, everybody, you get off work on Thursday. Let's say it's like everybody, let's say Friday is a holiday. So like we just ran it over Thanksgiving. So Black Friday is a holiday for all of us, right? People just generally had that off. And so we started Thanksgiving night, actually, like after everybody was finished with their dinner, everybody came over. And then we did our character generation and initial adventure. And then we played Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day. Okay. That's the general scope of this. Sometimes we've done longer. If we have a longer weekend, we've done full 4 days where we'll like start on that night and then do, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. If you've got like a long weekend or something. But in general, it's that kind of a premise, right? And we usually run from about when we were younger, when we were all younger folks, we would be a little more aggressive. We'd run from like 10 a.m. to like 3 a.m. We're all old now. Okay. So that kind of a rigorous schedule. Like when we used to do marathon games, when we were starting this back in the early 2010s and I was a full decade and a half younger, I mean, I'd sleep like 3 hours a night and we would just rock. Okay.
We got to keep this train moving.
Then the marathon would end and I'd sleep for 16 hours straight. But at any rate, the basic idea here is we'll play from like 11 or noon, something like that, until about 1 a.m. So call it like 13 to 14 hours of game every day. Bop, bop, bop. So in general, you're getting about 50 hours of game in over the weekend, maybe 55, 60, something like that, right? Like it's in that space. It's between 48 to 60 hours in a weekend. If you play the extended one, then it's longer, right? But there you go.
Okay. Okay. So my initial recap after understanding this and what the things that immediately stick out to me of why I would find value in this. First and foremost, you've built in that first evening as your session 0. So you don't like start in day 1, minute 1 of 12 straight hours of playing of like feeling like you need to rush into the game. You actually set that up the night before and then you ease into that. But like you're making sure all the characters, the world, all the things are well defined and discussed, and they're excited about their characters without rushing into it.
Yeah,
That's
and we have done both. We have done remote session 0 before the marathon, where we'll all like, especially if I'll talk about why a remote in a second. But we've done that, and then like we just jump in full feet that night. We've also done it where if that's not possible, yes, we'll do the session 0 and get everybody on board and talking that first night. Yes. So, but we've done both options. I'll just say it's like you could start either way. It'd be fine.
Either way, the important thing is you're including a session 0 in this. You're not just like everyone's excited and
100%. You
open their
have to.
books and play.
Have to.
You
More
have to
than
set
even
this
your
up for
normal
success.
game, because you don't have time to, in a normal game that goes week to week, it's going to go on for months. You have time in between games to like think deeply about what's going on and go to the DM and be like, hey, this isn't quite working. I'd like to change this around, stuff like that. This is go, go, go.
Right.
Right. You ain't going to have time to be like midstream ripping the handbrake
Mm-hmm.
and making a bunch of changes. Like, you're in it to win it. Okay.
Yeah, you can't call a timeout for you to review a couple of things on your level up for the next 45 minutes. So the rest of the group is sitting and waiting on you. It's just kind of go with the flow mentality. The other things, just at the 30,000 foot view of why I think this is valuable, is twofold. And I think you're going to get into both of these, so I'm not going to get into the depth of it. But what immediately jumps out at me is twofold. One, it allows you to experience a well fleshed out yet curated story and really have it give maximum impact on your players because they don't have the degradation of memory and impact due to time. Real life time has passed.
Yep.
And number two, you just like, it feels like you're able to play a version of the game that when we think about historically what D&D is supposed to be, is about telling a well thought out, longer, interesting campaign is the word used often, story. And that's not something that happens in 3 to 4 hours or even 10 hours. You're able to do that in a way that doesn't require everyone to have this Friday free, this Friday and every Friday until one of us dies or all of us die, right?
That's right. And for those people who say like, oh, I could never get a weekend. I could never get a weekend away. Okay, you could. You probably could. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people could. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because you plan it. This becomes your boys' trip or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is you talk to your partner. By the way, boys or girls trip, I don't care. Like, I was using that, but it could be either. Like, you plan it out in advance, months in advance, usually. Like, we plan ours 8 months in advance for what weekend we're going to get together, right? So everybody can set the time apart from work, talk to their partners, spouses, making sure everything's aligned, work everything out. And then you're there. You're there doing the thing, right? And so, like, if you can find space in your schedule to go somewhere, do something, there you go. All right. That's your chance. Like, this is just like planning any other trip. Instead of going away and playing video games for weekend, or going and playing golf or hunting, or I don't know, whatever, right? This is you do this instead.
Going to Vegas for a long weekend. It is like that, but way nerdier and cheaper.
Exactly. Ironically, I did that last weekend. My wife is on like a little girl's holiday this weekend. So there you go. I mean, that's like literally what's happening, right? We both just planned this out in advance, so we knew our schedules wouldn't overlap. And that's what happens.
There you go. Yeah. There's a bit of adulting involved in this, but I would say that there's if done correctly for an ongoing campaign, there is a good amount of adulting that needs to happen there as well, because you're working your schedule around your one evening or one afternoon or whatever a week or every other week. I actually think this is probably easier to pull off twice a year. Probably a lot easier to pull off twice a year than it is to play a regular weekly game for that full year.
I absolutely think that is true. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you can plan it in advance. It feels like you can work. You don't have to constantly set aside time. Now, keep in mind, I still have a weekly game, of course, but like, but if that's a challenge for you, if having the time weekly, doing this kind of thing and making it an event, is so much easier to get away with than the regular weekly schedule thing, because people let regular life get in the way of their weekly game. But this is like scheduling a vacation.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty huge. And I think a big bonus to this too, just again from looking outside in, is that it allows people that just can't do that regular campaign stuff to experience a lot of more different version of that same satisfying, full-fledged story, character arcs, development that really is the core of what tabletop RPGs are. It allows you to experience that without having to have a regular every week campaign. And you can do it with people that you don't live close to and you couldn't play regularly game, or you'd have to do it virtually. And sometimes that's, it's got its own issues.
No, you just hit the thing. So one of the reasons I mentioned earlier that we do our session zeros remote is because one of those marathons every year we use, because there's some different people who are involved in different marathons that I'm a part of. There's sort of a core group, and then we have different ancillary, whatever, it doesn't matter. One of those groups is guys we're great friends with, but who moved away to other places. And so this is the excuse to get back together with them and see them, even though they now live like thousands of miles away in other places in the country, right? And so this is the weekend where we know we're going to get to spend time with them and make sure those friendships stay, in touch. And I think that's really, really, really important, for those people that you probably, care for greatly, but they moved away. And it's like, well, you always say, well, we should get out and go visit them. You're not going to do it. This gives you an excuse to get everybody back together, to get the band back together, as it were, right? And pull everybody there for a weekend.
And make good food or order in good food. I mean, come on. That's 100%. All part of this, right? We got to talk about snack loadout. We got to talk about which place are we getting the pizza from. We got to talk there's so much more fun discussions around this.
Food is always a critical part of this from my perspective. Yes, 100%. Okay. I want to talk some about sort of what's going on here, because I think there are other very material differences and reasons why this is an awesome way to play D&D. Because some people might just look at this and go like, okay, neat. Your great revolution is you get together for a weekend. Cool story, guys.
Wow.
But I think there's more
to it. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. Shut up.
Like this, as somebody who has DM'd a lot of these, it is a materially different experience to do this than to play in a weekly game.
Okay.
A weekly game, if you're DMing or playing in it, is television.
Week to week television. 45-minute episode of Stranger Things, and next week can come back for the next episode. Okay. I get it.
Okay. Marathon games are movies.
Oh, I like some of that.
You're writing a movie. And as somebody who's written a lot of these, like I GM 2 to 3 out of the ones we do every year, basically, usually. So not 2 to 3, sorry, 1 to 2 of them every year. Like I always do at least one. Sometimes I do 2 of the 3. That's what I meant. Like I just ran this last one, for example. You can structure it as an act 1, act 2, act 3. Something you normally can't do in your adventure. You can write, like what I will usually do is I'll write out my story, not in detail. I'll write the bullet points, and I'll write the whole first day and a half in detail. And then I'll leave the bullet points a little loose for day 2 and day 3. And after the first full day 1, I'll fill out the bullet points and add in stuff that they seized on in day 1, change around some little things here and there. And then after day 2, I'll do the same thing again. Like I spend 30 minutes just fleshing it out. Like, oh, they really attached to this NPC they met in day 1. Let's bring them back in day 2. That kind of thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I've got my story structured. I know my act breakdown, right? So this is where the climax is going to happen. This is what's important, and so on. You're writing a movie, but it's a dynamic movie. I can keep adjusting after each day of running the marathon, right? The other thing is you don't have the memory erosion.
Yeah.
Everything is always so fresh.
Yeah.
Because you stop playing, people go to bed, they wake up, you're playing again.
Huh? Yeah.
Okay. So that's it. People are like, they're in it. You don't have to be like, wait, who was Githithrax? Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, cool. Githithrax was that dragon we met yesterday,
Of course they're named Githithrax. Great name drop off the top of your head, because that's exactly the kind of name of some important NPC that I always am like, what the fuck weird name was that guy again? Yes.
Right. Right. So it gives you a chance to tell a more cohesive story. It also lets you tell other types of stories that are really, really, really hard to execute in a weekly game. Let me explain. John, are you a fan of horror movies? Do you like the scary movies?
Some, yeah. More thriller than scary, but yeah, sure. Yes.
Okay, sure. If you're a fan of scary movies, horror movies, those are really hard to do. Week to week
by week game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, where you sit down for 3 to 4 hours, play a game, and then it's like, okay, welcome back. The horror starts again now, I guess. Right?
Yes.
Okay? It just feels so disconnected. And it's hard to extend it out that far.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Anyone that's tried to run Curse of Strahd knows that feels. Yeah.
Yes. We ran Curse of Strahd as a marathon, and it was awesome.
Oh, that would be a fun marathon
because
game.
then you're never out of it.
No.
Okay. And that's my point. We've done multiple horror games in our marathons, and it's such a better setting. When you're there and you're in the thick of it for like 12 to 13 hours, tension, you can just play with it, right? Up and down and up and down. And like people never get pulled out of the world. It's so much easier to sustain, right? The intensity that's required.
And I bet that that's true of any kind of setting or any kind of game. It's just that's a really good way to highlight it in a kind of game that's typically difficult. But it's probably true universally of how you're able to just like stay locked in, right? And I think the other thing is, and you tell me how this works, but pacing feels like you have much more control, or much more drama happens in pacing because it's happening in a condensed amount of time. So they feel the swings and the really tense, high energy, high intensity spot, and then the lulls, and then you can control that pacing better because it's not broken up with 7 to 14 days between sessions where that chops up pacing inevitably anyway.
Yes, television shows have to have a certain pacing. They have to have a rise and a fall in the 45 minutes of that television show, right? And everyone has to like end and set up the next one. Like there's a lot of work to do in writing a 45-minute television show, right? You're not doing that. All that's out the window, man. You're telling one cohesive story. You have total control over the pacing. Like writing a movie is completely different than writing a television show. And that's what you're doing here. There's another type of game that's really hard to do over a week-to-week sustained game that's so easy in a marathon, and that's a mystery.
I was just going to say, are you talking about murder mysteries? There's been
Yep.
a murder. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have run so many mysteries that I had one of my players go, "Would you please run something else?" Because I love the mystery genre. And so like it's just the perfect medium for it. Because again, the problem with running a mystery week to week is players forget the little nuance that's really important to solving the mysteries, right?
Yeah.
The tiny misspoken words, the little things that don't line up in stories, right? Those little clues that you drop. Those get so easily lost unless you have the most like determined note taker in the world, right? Who can like just this sort of autodidact, right? Who's just like shorthanding your every word. But in a game like this, no, remember that just happened 5 hours ago. It's
Right.
fresh. We're all
Right.
there.
That was,
Right.
yeah. I mean, the best way I can think of that is, I don't know if any of the listeners have ever been to an escape room. I've done a fair amount of escape rooms in my life at this point. If you had to go do the first half of an escape room with like a team building exercise for work, and then you just put everything down, and then next week you came back and had to complete the second half of the escape room, think of
Exactly.
how much time spent like, all right, where were we at? And did we solve that? And what was that linked to? What were we talking about? Like, and that's every session of a D&D get together again for the next session moment. For the first 15 to hour and a half is like talking to each other to try to remember. And that's even if it's not just gone. And sometimes if you're running something that has these really fun plot points that if they grasp, if they connect the dots, it is such a satisfying, engaging, interesting moment. And you just it's to the wind whether or not they're going to find those things. But
That's right.
I
Yeah.
love
No,
love
exactly.
mysteries.
That's such a good analogy. Yes, it
Yeah.
would be impossible to complete the escape room in that scenario, right? Yeah, of course. Other things that I found is that are really nice here is it gives you, if you've got like a forever DM, this is a good chance for them to take a seat as a player and let
Yeah.
somebody else take the helm without that like long commitment of running a game week to week to week to week, which can grind people down, right? If you've got a book adventure, like I mentioned with Curse of Strahd, you've got some cool, like, you got some book adventure you've always wanted to run, some campaign that's in a box you've always wanted to run from any edition of anything ever. This can be a really nice way to do it, right? To just like pack it in, follow it. And in that regard, it can be a great way to let new DMs step up.
Yeah.
And maybe that, you know what I mean? Cause like they don't want to commit to like the full week to week thing, but they're like, oh, but I've got Curse of Strahd. I own this book. I've played for a while. I'm ready to try. I'd like to take you guys through it. Is it okay if I DM? We've had many new DMs come in through that exact pipeline where they had a book, they ran the marathon out of the book, right? They put their own stuff on top of it, of course. It's not that they're inexperienced players. They'd been playing at the table for a while, but this is their first chance to run it. And it was like a tight, they knew they could sit down and have more control.
Right. There's something about prepping, knowing that you are prepping start to finish, well, everything in quotations, everything. But you know what you need to get into before you sit down that day. And there is some comfort in knowing the expectations that I have on myself, the expectations that I have for the players, and the expectations that they're going to have on me. And then you feel like you can grasp it all because you've set yourself up for that. And
That's
I
right.
think that there is a lot of knowing that there's an end to something and it being barely like easily spread out. It's like, okay, it's 6 p.m. on Sunday is when we're done. So it's easier to put the ball around that and understand that you need to do that. And I agree with that. I think a lot of the new DMs, first time DMs that I have worked with, it's typically with a short, either a one shot or it's done over 3 sessions. And this would probably been a better experience for them than that.
That's right. It lets them actually get the feel and without overcommitting, right? Because saying you're going to run a D&D game, like a regular or any kind of game, I say D&D generically, right? But like saying you're going to run the regular game week to week to week is like, that's a crazy commitment for people. And it scares people. But we've had so many people at our table who will not run a weekly game, run a marathon game and be very happy with it. And we've had an amazing time. Like people who I didn't think we're gonna want to ever sit behind the GM screen do it, and we had such a wonderful time, right? So, and it gave them the confidence to then go eventually run a weekly game.
Great. I think that there's comparing it for movies versus TVs. It also helps you a lot, both from this DMing perspective, but also just enjoyment as a player in a different way that still ties to those. You have to, when you're writing a TV series, you are only writing it for this season because it could get canceled after this season.
Yep.
And so, but oh my gosh, we didn't get canceled. I have got to now for season 2 find a way for this show to not lose its magic and to still have you want to continue for a story that I kind of tentatively had to plan for ending at season 1 and just keep going on forever and ever. That's very difficult to do. And that is not unlike running a regular campaign, a weekly or bi-weekly campaign, because you don't know what the finish line is at any given point. And you kind of like, I feel like you guys could like drip feed the story and pacing can just get all wonky on you and nothing could happen for an entire 6-hour session. And you feel like you can really lose control of that slippery rope that is an engaging storyline. And with this, like like you don't have that, right? We know and prepping with those 3 beats, right? Whether you're running this like a trilogy, a Star Wars trilogy, or you're running it as A New Hope movie with the 3 main beats of that movie to get it all the way to the end, you still know, and you know, okay, we have 3 days. Okay, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That means I need to have our giant cliffhanger beat 1 by end of Friday night. The plot twist big part by Saturday night, and by Sunday night it all comes together for a nice conclusion. You have it all kind of like in a package to keep yourself on track, and that's really valuable.
Yes. And you mentioned trilogies, which is thank you for opening the door to that. So as I said, we've run a lot of these. And I'll talk about some stories. I don't want to bore people with stories, but at the same time they're illustrative. Um some of these we've run many that have become trilogies.
Mm.
Okay. So our riffs, we've played riffs as a marathon many times, and we play that as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What I
Okay.
mean is each story is like loosely connected to the other one and will have ties and setups back to the other stories. I'm ultimately the one telling the Infinity War saga, but I've had other GMs tell it in that story. Like I let other directors step up and run and do some movies. They're doing Ant-Man or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it all just connects together. And we've done, I think, 10 Riffs marathons at this point. Okay. all loosely connected, some more than others, some kind of like mainline stories, right? Some are your Avengers movies where everything is more tied together and you're dealing with the sort of meta plot. Some are just off on their own. Okay. And then like maybe there's a loose connection at the end when Samuel L. Jackson comes in and recruits one of the players for the Avengers initiative, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I dig
And
that.
so we've done that. We've done just a hard trilogy. So I ran probably the most successful or fondly looked back on marathon that I've run is a Musketeers game. Okay. So magical Musketeers, 1630s France. And that was a part 1, part 2, part 3. Right. And I didn't intend that. All right. Like I ran the first game. It was a self-contained marathon. It was a standalone movie. It had a beginning, middle, and an end, in Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And we got to the end, and it was so good. Everybody was like, we want to play these characters more. And I was like,
do this again. This is awesome.
Let's do it. And I realized like this story can continue. I've got stuff here. We've got stuff set up. We can keep going. Right. And so then we kept going. By far my favorite D&D character I have ever played, my favorite character in any game, is my Paladin Kavlin, who I've mentioned on this podcast many times. And he came out of a marathon game, which in the end, I think we played, it took about 10 years to resolve the whole thing. And that went on for many games, some small, some big. And he was like, and it was just this ongoing, like each marathon was its own story, but they all built into the larger tapestry of the character, right? In the end, that was like a mega campaign of just like truly epic proportions. Because if you figure we did that, we did like full-fledged marathons probably, I think 5 or 6 times. So that's like 300 hours. And then some micro marathons, where just, I won't bother to explain, but just they were shorter for various and sundry reasons. That was like 12 hours of time, right? So it's like, 600 hours of time in this character. I would say that's pretty good.
Think of how many years that would take to get that way.
Sure, playing like 4 hours or 3 hours a week, once a week.
And how tight would the story of that would be? Let's say somewhere between 2 and 3 years, say 3 years of playing. How tight and connected and memorable is that story? Because it's so spread out, like butter spread across too much bread.
Yes.
Compared to
I'm
a
rewatching
marathon.
the Lord of the Rings extended edition right now. It's funny.
Well, the wife is gone. You gotta let loose. You know what I'm saying? Got to take
Time
care of
to
that
party. Pop on that extended edition. Let's go nuts.
Take care of the puppy and watch Lord of the Rings. There's only 2 things on my list for the weekend.
Pretty much it. You're not wrong.
When you're saying
it does. You're exactly right. It tied, like it felt so much more cohesive, coherent, right? And that's just it. The character building that happens here is so much more intense.
Yeah.
Okay. Like because you're sitting there for 12 to 13 hours a day living this character, right? The deepest conversations I've had in character were all during marathons because you can just get deeper into it.
I love that. It made me think of what immediately came to my head. Go back to 5 minutes ago when you talked about them as trilogies, but didn't intend to be started as trilogies. 2 things came to mind. Number one, I think that's a really smart approach. Is like always treat your marathon weekend as a snow globe, that everything is encompassed and lives in there, and your story and the experiences and the characters are all, you can put them on the shelf and you can look back on them fondly because it's an all-encompassing thing. But sometimes those snow globes are John Wick, and we want more. And we love those characters, and we see that world is so amazing and awesome that we can't possibly stop at one John Wick. We need John Wick with dogs that are the good guy dogs that jump and bite people, and we need John Wick in the mirror skyscraper where they're all fighting on glass, and we need John Wick the knife fight. All these are awesome John Wicks, but you needed that first one to really create that big impact. And don't put all the pressure of yourself on a trilogy from the get-go, but you might end up with one if you have a...
Yeah, if it happens, it happens, right? Let it evolve naturally. Right. That's right.
Right. I had a couple of questions on things that I think may be hang-ups or your experiences with...
Get me. I'm ready. Yes, bring the challenges.
Okay.
May I say one more quick thing in favor? I
Please
do
do.
want to get out. It ties to that. And then, yes, I want to hit challenges. This also is a great way to test unusual games, settings, characters, ideas you have that you don't think would stand up to a full, you wouldn't run for a full game. So you want to play a new system. You got that hot new Twilight Sword coming because you backed it on Backer Kit, right?
Yeah.
Doing it as a marathon like we did with Ruttigers.
Yeah.
Right. You don't necessarily want to run a week to week Rifts game, but you want to play Rifts. Boom. Right. We've played Mech Warrior. We've played Rifts. We've played like so many different wild game systems over the years as marathons. Cause there's like, okay, let's give this a shot. Let's put it through all its paces. Or like you want to do an unusual setting. I mentioned the Musketeer setting. I've done Edo period Japan as a setting, like a bunch of different historical things or just weird out there stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It lets you experiment without everyone feeling like, well, I'm not really sure I want to sign up to that week to week for potentially the next year or two.
Right.
It's a weekend. Let's go. Let's take a shot. So it lets you get way more weird with it, experimental with it, try things you might not otherwise try, and expand your horizons. That's my final point. Okay, hit me with challenges.
Yeah, and just like your Ruttigers experience, you really get to, it's not doing a one shot in 3 to 6 hours till you really don't get a full vibe check on a system. I feel like after that full long weekend, you really have a good feeling overall about a system. Like I feel like that is a one experience is all you needed to create some pretty lasting impressions on what you feel about it. Okay.
We've already got our Sword World Marathon planned out for next year.
Oh man. Hold up. Is that group looking for one more player?
You're welcome to join, brother. You can come on over.
I'd fly down for that in a heartbeat. Okay. My initial thing is kind of things tied in a bow here, but they're separate things, but I want to kind of lump them together because it's the one big thing that I question. It deals with downtime, leveling, and passage of time. So characters show a further arc, a level arc, how usually, and if we take a look back oftentimes in our D&D games, you're like, oh shit, look what we accomplished in the last 7 days.
Sure.
Like your characters accomplish a ridiculous amount of things in a short period of time. When you're condensing all your playtime together, I can see how that is an issue that you need to be proactive about. So how do you deal with time jumps? Or you don't? How do you deal with downtime? Using that kind of strategically, and how do you deal with leveling?
Great questions. Okay. So I will say one of the nice parts with downtime is, you're right. We've done marathons where you level a lot and marathons where you level not as much. Okay. Like maybe once a day or something. And so that can necessitate more or less time, kind of depending on the verisimilitude of what your feeling is. Right. Now, this does give you the ability to like do a clock episode, right? Or do a clock movie, right? Where you're on the clock. Start the thing going, we have 10 days, and you start the marathon with, we have 10 days until the world ends. This marathon will take place in that 10 days. Okay.
Yeah. The old Kiefer Sutherland 24.
Correct. And it's just like pedal to the metal the whole way. Yeah. What is downtime? We ain't doing that in this game, right? We ain't got time for that. You rest when you die, right? And that's a perfectly valid methodology. We've done that version. We've also done them where it has a more what you would think of as like normal traditional pacing. And then when you get to downtime, you just do what you would think happens in downtime. It just happens in a condensed fashion. So what I mean by that is like, you come to a point and you're like, okay, you guys do this. 3 weeks are going to pass. Everybody tell me what you want to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you get the sense of pacing, like when you run these enough, okay, I can generally time my pacing to where those downtime episodes, which I'll also then tie to leveling to answer your secondary question.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Will happen around meals.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, okay, we're going to break for lunch. Food's here for lunch. Everybody level up, and you're going to have 3 weeks of downtime. Talk over lunch about what you want to do. That keeps people in character even over lunch, but they're not doing like serious beat to beat role playing or rolling dice. They're just like talking about, oh, I want to work on this. We're going to do some alchemy. Hey, we need to solve this mystery. Maybe we could do some research into that thing. Blah, 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 blah. right? So you can tie it to those natural beats because you're not actually sitting there actively, literally rolling dice for 13 hours straight. You're going to have breaks for food and, stuff
Right.
like that or whatever, right? And so, yeah, if you just tie it to those, you just basically you'll get good at like seeing that thing coming 2 hours down the line, 3 hours down the line. You're like, okay, I'd probably break for lunch at like 1:30. It's currently noon. All right, I need to get them to here by that point. And then you can kind of slow them or hustle them as you go. It's a little bit more what I would call like active DMing, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're like leading characters around by the nose. It's not on
No.
rails, even in this case. They still, as I said, many times I've written these where the players are still massively shaping the game day to day or hour to hour, just as normal. But it does mean that you need to take a little more active style where you're like, okay, so you guys were dealing with this. What's your plan? Right. You
Right.
just kind of push them a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Don't let silence hold too long. Keep that action moving and pushing them and directing them. Okay. Yeah. That was kind of where I was when I'm envisioning in my head your answers about where I would have approached it if I went in blind, never been to a marathon before, but I'm walking into my very first one and running it. That's where my like leading with my gut would have gone. And so it's good to hear that sounds like it works really well.
My
Um,
favorite thing in all the mystery games I do, by the by, like I've done a lot of mystery games. I love them. But my favorite thing is when I get the players to be like, all right, time out and pause. And they get up on the whiteboard and start assembling a murder board. They're like
yeah,
timelining stuff and putting NPCs on, and this happened here. And I'm like, I'll just sit back and let this play for like an hour. Like, this
right,
is great. Right. And I'll
right.
just let it happen in character because they're all just like talking in character of like trying to solve the mystery. And I'm like, this is peak D&D right here.
Yes,
I am doing nothing unless they have like a clarifying question, right? Like, hey, what did we learn here? And I'll say like that NPC's name was this. They sold you this. Great. Okay,
right.
keep going.
And then you can have the world interject in the most dramatic fashion whenever you feel
Exactly.
like, you know,
Yep.
the constable kicks down your front door as you're making your plans and he's like, there's been another murder. And like, oh,
Exactly.
all right. I love that. Yeah. It totally feels like a very, yeah, you can have a sword and board kind of real action packed version of a marathon, or you can have real story driven mystery. Everything's about uncovering clues and figuring out the puzzles and the correct solutions, or somewhere in between. It doesn't feel like this
Yeah,
is like,
we've done the whole gamut. It's great. You really can. You can also mix and match really easily. Yes.
yeah, you could twist it day one. Oh, how sweet is that? Day one, they think it's full JRPG. That's what we're doing here today. And then day two, it's all murder mystery. You didn't know it was coming. That guy that was
Yes.
like, "Can we do something else?" You're like, "Absolutely, for sure." And then day two hits. You're like, "Ha, we're back in
I
it."
ran a surprise Ravenloft game once where I made the marathon. They didn't know they were running a Ravenloft game. So like that classic thing. Like when we played Curse of Strahd, everybody knew we were playing Curse of Strahd. We made characters for Curse of Strahd. But I ran a surprise marathon where they all made generic fantasy characters. Like I set up the world, all this stuff. They made characters, and then that first night was like a fun festival thing, and then they went to the king's speech, and then the speech slowly got darker and darker and darker as the
The
king
mist
gave in
grows
more and more
in.
to madness. And then like it was red wedding, everybody started getting murdered, and then the dark powers pulled the king in, and the whole rest of the game was them and Ravenloft trying to get back to the king and kill him and dethrone him so they could
Uh,
escape Ravenloft.
Gotcha. All right. One final quick question I have for you is in regards to running this game. It feels like it has its own set of challenges to run this game, much of which we talked about here. But you gave a good example of someone that's newer to GMing to run something out of the book. However, what are some of the challenges or things you really need to keep on top of mind if you're running this game to have it go as smoothly as possible?
Yeah. Beware the dirtle, right?
Mm,
So people just sitting around kind of wasting time. Don't let people get disengaged and start just like, kind of right? Like you want to have something that's drawing PCs in at all points in time. Your own energy levels as the GM are one of your biggest challenges because you got to be on for like
yeah,
12 to
it's
13 hours
draining.
straight. Right. Yes. After I run these, I am admittedly the next day pretty wiped out. Right. So, like, legitimately do give yourself a chance to get enough sleep doing this. I know the instinct is to like, oh, I'll sleep less and when I'm dead and all that. And it's like, no, you're gonna materially suffer for that, right? Like actually give yourself a chance to get a good night's sleep in between each game. You need it because your brain needs to be like really working. You got to be actively listening and engaged with them. Beware them just kind of going down a road. Don't be afraid to jump in. And if they start going down a road in the game that is just like not at all where you wanted to go in a marathon, you can just be like, no, you can kind of pull them back. Right. And just be like, we're not going to go that direction, guys. Like you just pull them back and you'd be like, well, actually, you have to shut them down that directly most of the time. You can just like, they start investigating that way and you say like, there's nothing there. You don't find anything. You give them clues in game first. And then if they still refuse, you be like, look, guys, that's not the direction we're going with this. There's legitimately nothing there. This is get back to these other tracks. You need to explore these other items I threw out.
So it sounds like you want to be a little bit more proactive than in a regular weekly game on kind of reining things in because you are on the clock, right? So you want to make sure. Right. But like, yeah, if you're sensitive about it, and this is kind of leading to where I'm thinking that the value of one being a more experienced DM, but two, like thinking of this as a slightly different animal is having a good finger on the pulse of how far they're leading away and giving them a clue or giving them an NPC interaction that's kind of obvious that the way you want them to go is their decision of like, okay, that's right. It is that other way. That's their like make it their decision, but that they still felt like the weird track that they took was the reason they got the good information. So they felt validated. Yeah. Always make them feel validated that any decision they make is a good one if they do it right and they engage and maybe they roll well as well. Like, boom, we get you right where you need to go. They didn't need to know that wasn't at all where you needed them to go. So,
yeah. One last thing I'll say here is I think as a GM in a weekly game, the fear of failure is really high. It often leads us to make less exciting decisions. Right. Because we're afraid that we'll fail, that something will mess up, that it'll be bad, that the game will be bad. And that's that's a whole different conversation. We should probably do a whole episode on like not being afraid of failure and why there's no such thing. But with a marathon game, you can risk a lot more. We've done some marathons that didn't work. Like did not work. Okay. Just didn't. We tried something really experimental, something really unusual, something really different. A GM had a crazy idea. They ran it and we got to the end and we were like, that kind of sucked. Right. Now, at the end, it's fine. It was a weekend. We'll have more marathons. Right. It wasn't like that was it. Okay.
It didn't
it wasn't terrible. We still all got to hang out with each other and have fun.
Yeah.
It's just that game didn't work. That experiment didn't work. There's less investiture, right? If you're a year into a weekly game and you decide it's not working, man, that feels like some serious sunk cost you just lost, right?
And
but a weekend into it, you're like, whatever.
And it often feels like when you do that, you draw out the inevitable from when your gut originally tells you, I'm not feeling this. This is not going the right way. You just like you're in a bad relationship. You just stick in it for longer and longer and longer than you should have. Here, it's like, well, screw it. Like we're going to get through it and we're going to be able to make our own, and have an honest conversation. It feels to me too that when you run it like this, that the person that ran the game is probably a lot more open to feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, because they're less like it less defines who they are, like their 100%. Year-long
We always
campaign.
Do a feedback session at the end. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's, hey, I sound like I didn't try. I put a lot of work into this, fun ideas, whatever, and we we took all of our time for this long weekend to schedule it and get together and do it. However, it is not like defining my every Friday night for a year plus, and you're telling me it was shit now, how many months later, like it is, we can learn and there'll always be another one. So I really dig that.
Fast feedback.
Yes. Fast feedback. All right. Gazeboids, we appreciate that you stuck with us. If you have any of you have done a marathon, please let us know down in the comments. What are some of the things you like about them? What are some of the things you've learned about them? What kind of recommendations or advice you'd have in regards to them? If you've never done a marathon, let us know if we have convinced you this is something you should try. So, especially if you're like, all right, I already sent out an email to my group. I'm going to start doing it. I want to hear that. Or if you're like, oh, there's no way I could do that. Why can't you do it? You tell me why you can't do it. And then
that's right. Hit us up. Tell us in the comments if you've got like concerns that why you think we missed challenges we missed. Hit us up. We'll be watching. We'll be answering.
right. Yeah. Of just other questions you may have about marathons, put those in the comment section. Something that I didn't think of a question to ask Vince about it. Let us know, and I will make Vince answer those. Or I will pretend to be Vince and I'll answer them completely in the opposite way. And you will never know which one was right and which one was Vince.
It's always me.
It's always me. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week as we inch ever closer to the holiday season. And I hope that Santa Claus brings you some more RPG books under your tree. Let us know if you are going to get some RPG goodies or you're giving RPG goodies. I want to hear about that as well. All right, Vince, you got any final words for everybody out there?
No, I just give it a try, schedule it out, use it as an excuse to get together with friends, to celebrate, to do something new, to do something fun, tell a good story, and learn fast, have fun. Yay, RPGs go.
Yay, RPGs go. Goodbye.